In the summer of 2016, I applied for a valet parking job, and I was told, after going through the whole interview process, I was told that I wouldn't be accepted for the job, and the only way that I would be accepted is if I was to cut my hair. And at the time, I had dreadlocks, and I just think that goes to show that there's still bias and maybe even preference in the workplace. And in recent years, you start to see that there's becoming more and more people with tattoos and piercings working in the workplace, or they're essential workers. And I think as time goes on, you start to see that we'll start to see that those norms will definitely be accepted more, and there's definitely be more and more people working jobs like that. And this just goes to show that there's definitely inequality in the United States today. You start to see that through income gap, criminalization, immigration, and even through gender and race. As Taylor Telford wrote in the Washington Post, the nation's median household income is 60 in 2019 was $63,000, and the reasons for this being would be because the minimum wage was $7.25 an hour, and because Caucasian men primarily populate the top of the economic ladder, and this creates a social structure in society today, and you see that there's an upper middle, lower class, and within that there's a lot of bigotry and condescending behavior between everybody. And another time that we saw this in history, and that's just as far as just the income gap. We look back at probably like the 1980s, and you see how Reaganomics and Ronald Reagan implemented that economic plan, and it pretty much just made the richer rich and the poor just stayed poor. And that leads me to my second point of unequal pay among gender, and how that can lead to women working multiple jobs and making ends meet for their family that they had to provide for. According to Jamila Mishner in her article, "What's Policy Have to Do with It? Women across all racial groups earn less than men." And this could lead them to, again, working multiple jobs and or selling paraphernalia. And with unequal pay comes gentrification and separation of neighborhoods. And as John Barrymore stated in How Stuff Works, Section 8 housing, the Housing Act of 1937 is where they get the term Section 8 housing from, and it created affordable housing for families with low income. And this also leads me to my third point, which which goes back to how working multiple jobs, or maybe even selling paraphernalia, because it brings in more money quicker and faster than what jobs they're working, especially if they're working at 7.25 an hour, and that's just minimum wage. And the legal system and immigration policies allow for major disadvantages against minorities. And throughout throughout history, especially in like the civil rights era, we saw that Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and even Mahatma Gandhi was a very avid fighter for civil rights and equal rights among people. And the ironic thing is that they all were assassinated. And I think personally that it was just for exploiting the government for what they really were, and or major organizations. According to Ruth Gomberg Munoz, the Hart-Celler Act was widely considered an extension of the civil rights, and this was just to, again, bring together people of different races and different ethnic groups. And but African American and Latino youths are more likely to be incarcerated than their grandparents and even their parents today. Ruth Delaney, who is the writer of Re-Imaging Prison Web Report, stated that 55% of African Americans and Latinos primarily populate federal and state prisons. And this is evident today through police brutality, as we've seen throughout the recent years, starting probably back in like 2014, I want to say. Along with the legal system, and then just how there's major disadvantages with that. You also have immigration policies, and how Native Americans, the Asians, and how they've been suppressed since the 19th century. Ruth Gomberg Munoz stated that the Bracero Program, which was signed in 1942, it was a treaty between Mexico and the United States, and they agreed to send 5 million workers over to the United States, to the southwestern part of the United States during the time of World War II, just to increase production and just to give them jobs as well. And you see that it kind of separates them. It tore families apart. People had to leave their families, kids, people that they cared for dearly, and I just think that's kind of wrong. And that just kind of reminds me of the transatlantic slave trade, which happened way back, probably like 1700s. But another group that has something to deal with that is ICE, or otherwise known as the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. They've been keeping migrants with long criminal history from entering the United States because of 9/11, which was a very gruesome attack on the Twin Towers in New York City. And it definitely makes sense, but at the same time, people are still looking for freedom, and they still want to have a chance just to have a better life. And at the same time, this gives bigots the platform just to just to remove or keep people from entering the country, because they know that they might have a chance to have the job, or just a chance at a better life. And I just think that's just totally wrong. And inequality can only be ignored. And if you do ignore it, I think that's just ignorant. But inequality is definitely still absent due to the income gap creating social structure throughout society, and that leading to bigotry, unequal pay, forcing citizens to find other ways to provide for their family, disadvantages in the legal system leading to criminalization against minorities, and immigration policies or organizations getting platforms just to remove people that they feel like don't belong in the country. And this is America as we know it, and it's supposed to be the land of the free, but it's only free for some of us.